Hello and welcome to this full-length version of Heavy Rotation. Yes, you might have seen me doing these things on Instagram and TikToks and all that sort of stuff. We thought we'd make it into a full-length thing. So this is my highlights of April and May of 2024. And it was an exciting time for left field extreme music, I have to say. And kicking off today, we have Full of Hell with Coagulated Bliss on Closed Casket Activities. The more extreme side of metal and hardcore has had some incredible releases in April and May, starting with this awesome album by the ever-innovative Full of Hell. Coagulated Bliss, lyrically speaking, is Dylan's love letter to small-town America that he loves but despairs of. When he was away touring the last album, I believe he was told by industry people close to him that maybe it was time for him to write a song or an album about his hometown. So that's exactly what they did. Now, this album excels in being equal parts brutal and beautiful, with confounding the power violence riffs by playing them in major keys to juxtapose and jolt. It's a very clever trick, and one I have brought up because it's in a world of extremes, when you've got nowhere to go, going major key, it's quite a jolt to the system. And apparently it's an homage to a band called Harvey Milk, who did a similar sort of thing. This album is so good, it took me several listens to realise that Converge's Jacob Bannon actually appears on Malformed Ligature. It is that good that I didn't realise for about 4 listens that one of my favourite hardcore vocalists is on this record. It's really that good. So I really would implore you, if you like the left field side of like power violence, grindcore, or just like mind-expanding metal, check out Full of Hell, Coagulated Bliss, out now on Closed Casket Activities. Up next, we have Gatecreeper and Dark Superstition out on Nuclear Blast. Gatecreeper, as we know them, are known for their homages to old school brutal death metal. But this album, they seem to have honed in on a very specific time in death metal history, and that time would be 1993 to 1994 to be precise. In that year, Carcass released Heartwork, there was Entombed did Wolverine Blues, Paradise Lost brought out Icon, Sepultura did Chaos AD, and so on and so forth. In short, it was a time when death metal, as we knew it, went kind of mainstream and started experimenting a bit, and Gatecreeper seems to have used this as the jump-off point for their record, and as a result there's a ton of groove and melody in the riffing, if not in the vocals, even a dash of My Dying Bride style melancholy, to give a nod to Turn Loose the Swans that was released that year. Maybe this is just how my ears are hearing it. The result is a very classic sounding death metal album that is perfect for people of my age group, and will definitely see Gatecreeper headlining much bigger venues in the future. I'm very sure this is going to translate. Ferocious single Caught in the Treads hinted at the greatness of this album, and then Dark Superstition fully follows up on that. There's not a bad track on this album. It really is banger after banger, and if that sounds like your cup of tea, then look no further. Up next is one of my favourites at the moment. It's an absolute killer, and it comes from no other than Relapse Records, who just don't do bad records. If they do, answers on a postcard, but this one is Candy, It's Inside You, and it kicks off with the utterly crushing Existenz, which kind of sets the tone for the rest of the record. They're another act in the extreme metal pantheon to take their sound to new places and really push the envelope. Occupying a place between hardcore power violence and industrial electronica, It's Inside You is as innovative as Code Orange were on the Underneath album, but with more trashy lo-fi kind of grindcore appeal. There are some utter stompers on this album, plenty of mosh pit killers, but where this album absolutely soars, in my opinion, is on the sublime experimentalism displayed on the awesome Love Like Snow. Check out this track, it's amazing. It's featuring Mercy MMPH on guest vocals, and it's a fuzzy, dreamy, sublime treat. Right nestled in amongst all the willful destruction. It's just a genius move. I don't even know if they know how genius it is, but it's very genius. This would be an early contender for Album of the Year if 2024 wasn't looking ridiculously strong already. Seek out this one if you like watching your boundaries crushing and your envelopes being opened and just the outer reaches. This is a fabulous record. Seek it out. Right, up next. Right, I may be from Essex, but I feel like an honorary Yorkshireman, and this speaks to me. It's My Dying Bride, Immortal Binding. This is out on Nuclear Blast, and it fills my cold, dark heart with joy when My Dying Bride release a new album. These guys really make me feel so proud to live in the north of England sometimes. The Immortal Binding is easily the strongest My Dying Bride record of recent times, and there's a chunkiness to it that is, by My Dying Bride standards, fairly upbeat. Of course, it's still drenched in scorn and melancholy thanks to a career best vocal by Aaron Stanhope, and those violins are still tugging on every heartstring that you own, and the guitars, Andy is just like putting in the most stately, authoritative riffs in there as we've come to expect. It just is imperial. It's imposing. It's My Dying Bride, basically. The good thing on this record, another good thing about this record rather, is the amount of bass in the mix. It's very, very pleasing, and it's good bass rumble. It kind of gets your bass face going. It's indeed the best production I've heard on a My Dying Bride album in recent times, if not ever. From the opening Her Dominion, which is deathly and heavy, right through to the second of Three Bells, then ending on the awesome Crushed Embers. This album literally doesn't put a foot wrong, in my opinion, and honestly makes this honorary Yorkshireman, if there is such a thing, reluctantly, because that's the way, very happy. Up next, and I've got to say this right, because I've been saying it wrong for ages. Pine, from Low Beams of Hope. Not Pigeon, Pine. This is on Floodlit Recordings. It's out soon, and it's the utterly sublime new album from Manchester post-rock powerhouse, Pine, and it's utterly, essentially, to my ears, feels like one piece of music. One big piece of 45-minute long music, but it's cut into 4 parts. And it plays out almost in chapters. This really needs to be listened to as a whole to get the full impact of it. During a recent live review, I did refer to Pine's music as reminding me of being a ship in and out of a storm. And that analogy still stands with the ever-changing journey of this album. And the musicianship is truly second to none, with the additional strings courtesy of ex-Dawn Raid violinist Simon Barr, really lifting it to that elegant bliss. Also cellos in there. It just, honestly, as a sonic sound, it's very uplifting and very deep. Exceptionally deep. Some of the best music I've heard this year has been by experimental instrumental acts, and this is probably the best of that bunch, which is a very, very high grade when you consider albums like by Sleep Makes Waves have been out this year. It really is an overwhelming body of work, and it really deserves deep reverence. Make sure you pick this one up and go and see this band live as soon as you can as well. Honestly, I'm not overstating it. Check this album out. Cobra the Impaler is up next with their Karma Collision album on Listenable Records. This album, Karma Collision, is a non-stop riff fest. Let's get that straight from the off. If you hail to the riff, this album is for you. Definitely one for fans of Mastodon, or even Coheed and Cambria in places, or Cambria. And that's just from the crushing opener, Magnetic Hex, to the title track, Karma Collision. It's just headbanger after headbanger after headbanger, with vocalist Manuel Remery's amazing, beautiful vocal performance holding the whole thing together. It really is great. 1 minute gutturals, next minute soaring melodies. It's absolutely pinpoint perfect. There's a playful psychedelia happening throughout this album which dances in and out of all that heavy riffing, and the entire album is critically packed with anthems and memorable hooks and choruses. You really will be humming some of these for days. I, for one, I'm really down for this, so I will be down at the front for the band's upcoming performance at Arctangent Festival, definitely. And if you're a total riff lord, which most of you should be, I mean, you need to look no further. This album is just for you. Even the album closer, Shifting Sands, is beautifully epic. Farewell ties this collection up in a bow beautifully. Honestly, go check this one out. Cobra the Impaler, Karma Collision. Next up, we have My Diligence with Death Horses Black. This is on Listenable Records. This album is dark, and by dark I mean pitch black. It's got shades of psych rock, doom metal, and gothic post-punk influences. If you like Killing Joke, there's a bit of that in there. If you like Sisters, there's a bit of that in there. There's even a little bit of shoegaze in there. On Allo Diplo Gaster Sudhausi, easy for you to say, we even recall Neurosis vibes creeping into the melting pot. It's that kind of album. It's molasses thick and yeah, not cheery. Sacred Anchor, although on the other hand, attaches itself to a driving positive-ish note. But overall, this is a wall of sound to accompany the darker, more contemplative moments of the soul. It's drenched in reverb and huge sounding, and the production fits the music perfectly. I'm sure this will be very, very popular with fans of the dark arts. Shellac, To All Trains. Spiky, awkward, agitated, and utterly glorious. Shellac's new album was something we all rejoiced at hearing about when the noise of its impending release came to us, but then came the news of Steve Albini's passing, and the shockwaves were felt throughout the entire music world. Still reeling from this, To All Trains arrived and the entire tone of the record had changed. However, what a swan song it is. From the opening jerk of WSOD to the awkward small talk of Girl From Outside to the frenetic chick new wave, ultimately it just twists and turns and is awkward, and it's meant to be awkward, and it's meant to be uncomfortable, and ultimately it ends with the strangely prophetic I Don't Fear Hell, a song about Steve Albini's death, from what I can see. It's a shocking way to sign off the record, and shocking's what they do. Shocking, direct, fearless, and total genius. Exactly the way he lived, and exactly the way this album is. Okay, next up we've got Darko with Grayscale. This is on Lockjaw Recordings. This is a 5-track EP, and they deal in the sort of shape-shifting punk hardcore that definitely has ants in its pants. 1 minute it's NoFX speed punk rock, the next it's doing gutturals in a hardcore fashion, and then it turns to turn of the century screamo, like Glassjaw-y sort of stuff, even a bit of Fall Out Boy in there as well, why not? And Darko have many bases covered, sometimes all of them at once. They bring to mind bands like Protest the Hero at times. This new 5-tracker, Grayscale, is an exhilarating slap around the chops if you're looking for a short, sharp shock to get you motivated for a busy day ahead. Definitely one for holding on tight and driving fast too. Lastly, we have The Huntsman and The Drive Land on Prosthetic Records, the ever-brilliant Prosthetic Records. Lastly, it's The Huntsman and their absolutely sumptuous album. The best way to describe this is a progressive post-metal with an almost folky twist, but in a very, very classy way. I know sometimes when you hear the word folk, you might get a little worried, but not here. This album is tonally brilliant and full of wonderful contrast Indeed, the band themselves described this collection as being stuck between two opposites. The musician displayed here is absolutely top drawer, and the arrangements are masterful. In a time of exceptional left field metal, this is definitely making its presence felt. I would say if you were the sort of listener that adores the willful come one, come all approach of, say, Bosk or Cult of Luna, but would like a more delicate melody to counter your heaviness, this is definitely an album you should seek out immediately. It's definitely out of this collection of records. On this episode of Heavy Rotation, we're leaving on a high because the Huntsmen definitely round out all of these incredible releases, all of which demand your attention immediately. Thanks for watching.